Hello and welcome to another video with a rundown of what's going on the arXiv this week in terms of quantum error correction. So on Monday we had nothing. On Tuesday we had two papers. One was the grand unification of continuous variable codes. So the approach of quantum error correction that I know the most about is where you have qubits or qudits, preferably in nice, well-defined places, and there are frameworks that can describe a whole bunch of codes in that context, things like the stabilizer formalism and the formalism of subsystem codes. But there's also been this approach of continuous variable codes, things like the GKP or the CAT code that are defined on something like bosonic modes. And this is something I've learned a lot less about because it seems like there's just these few random examples and no overarching formalism. So what they aim to do in this paper is provide an overarching formalism so we can better understand it, it's more approachable to learn about it, and perhaps we'll also discover new codes. Then on Tuesday, there was also this fault-tolerant circuit synthesis for universal fault-tolerant quantum computation. Two fault tolerance in one title. That is very fault-tolerant. So this is looking at circuit synthesis. So you want to run a circuit, you want to run it on an error-corrected quantum computer. The error correction allows you to do certain gates fault tolerantly, and so you've got to try and work out how you're going to do the circuit you want in terms of the gates that you have. And this is something that people have focused a lot more on topological codes in the past, but here they're looking at concatenated codes, which is more of a traditional approach to quantum error correction. So it's kind of surprising that people haven't looked at circuit synthesis for this before. I'm not sure to what degree that might have been done, but here it's been done, either for the first time or a bit more. Then on Wednesday, we had improved single-shot decoding of high-dimensional hypergraph product codes. So these hypergraph product codes are examples of codes that have single-shot readouts. So normally we have to perform a bunch of measurements, and these measurements should have well-defined outcomes. And if they differ from those outcomes, then it's a hint that something's gone wrong. But those measurements themselves could have gone wrong. So these hints aren't all that reliable. So we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again, and we do lots of analysis to make sure that we know what we're talking about. But there are certain codes that you can have this single shot readout. You can effectively measure once, you get enough information to undo any of the possible errors that you have in the measurements. Now, previous attempts at decoding this, so taking all of this information and working out what went wrong, has typically used some of that information to correct the other part, and then use that other part to work out what went wrong. So you have the part of the measurements that you typically use to work out what went wrong, but we can't exactly trust those. So you use the first part in order to fix that. And then I'm not really explaining this very well, but I'm trying to explain that it's usually a two-stage process. Here they work out a way to do it all at once, and they find that it's massively better. And they have a Twitter thread. So some people tweet about things. It's not just me tweeting about papers sometimes. Sometimes people tweet about their own papers. That's always a good day. So you can check that out as well. So that's Oscar Higgott. So at Oscar Higgott on Twitter, you can find this thread. Finally, resource reduction in multiplexed high-dimensional quantum Reed-Solomon codes. So this is another example where I say, well, quantum error correction, I usually think of it as being for quantum computers, but it's also useful for quantum communication. Quantum communication actually isn't completely orthogonal from quantum computing because you might have networked quantum computers and you need to do quantum error correction for them. And this is looking at what kind of quantum error correction code you might use in a quantum communication setup. Quantum Reed-Solomon codes, apparently very good. I don't know enough about quantum communication to verify that, but the people who are authors on here, I think, would know. So we can probably give that opinion some quite high esteem. I've run out of what words I'm trying to say here. It's probably true. But there are also some drawbacks, so they tried to work their way around the drawbacks in order to make it even better. And the drawbacks are that you need to use a lot of CX gates and encoding circuits, and they've made it so you can use less CX gates. Now, is that really a metric that is extremely important in this context? Again, I don't have the background in this case to know, but they took a problem and they solved it. And that's always something that makes a good paper, in my view. So, yeah, I think that's all of the papers from this week. I hope you found this in some way informative, and I will see you next week.